Mia stared at the phone screen. The job interview was in 10 minutes. It was her dream job, but there was one problem. She had to speak in English. Her heart pounded. What if she messed up? What if they didn't understand her? Taking a deep breath, she whispered, "I can do this." But deep inside, she wasn't so sure. Welcome to the Fluent Storybook. Here, we help you improve your English through engaging and real-life stories. If you want to speak English fluently in 2025, this story is for you. Let's begin. Mia had always been a hard-working and ambitious woman. She had spent years building her career at a growing tech company in New York, and she loved her job. But there was one problem, one that held her back every single day. She couldn't speak English fluently. It wasn't that she didn't know English at all. She had studied it in school, memorized long lists of vocabulary words, and even passed her English exams. But speaking? That was a different story. Every time she tried, her mind went blank. Her heart raced, and her hands trembled. She was afraid of making mistakes, of sounding silly, of people laughing at her. At work, she felt stuck. She had brilliant ideas during meetings, but she stayed silent. She wanted to join conversations with her colleagues, but by the time she found the right words in her head, the moment had already passed. It was even worse when she had to speak with international clients. She avoided eye contact, hoping someone else would answer questions for her. Her boss, Mr. Carter, was patient, but she could tell he was starting to notice. One day, after a big presentation, he called her into his office. "Mia," he said with a kind but serious tone, "you're one of our best employees. Your technical skills are outstanding, but there's one thing holding you back." Mia already knew what he was going to say. She swallowed hard, bracing herself. "You need to improve your spoken English," he continued. "Our company is expanding. We're working with international clients, and strong communication is more important than ever. I want you to take the lead on a project next month. But that means you'll need to present in English." Mia's stomach twisted. A presentation? In English? The thought alone made her panic. "I know it's not easy," Mr. Carter added, "but I believe in you. I know you can do this. You just need to practice." Mia forced a smile and nodded, but inside, she felt like a failure. She had been in the U.S. for years. Why was speaking still so difficult for her? She had tried everything, watching English movies, reading books, even practicing grammar exercises. But none of it helped when she actually had to speak in real life. That evening, she sat alone in her small apartment, staring at her reflection in the mirror. "Why can't I do this?" she whispered. She felt frustrated, embarrassed, and helpless. She wanted to grow in her career. She wanted to speak freely without overthinking every single word. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the fear of speaking. The next morning, Mia walked into the office, determined to avoid speaking as much as possible. But fate had other plans. As soon as she reached her desk, her coworker, Rachel, called out to her. "Mia, good morning. How was your weekend?" Mia froze. A simple question, but her brain scrambled for the right words. Should she say, "It was good" or "It was great"? Was there a better way to say it? The silence stretched too long, and Rachel gave her a confused look. It was nice," Mia finally mumbled. She felt ridiculous. She had wasted so much time overthinking instead of just answering naturally. Rachel smiled politely and turned away. Mia sighed. This was exactly the problem. She overanalyzed everything. She didn't trust herself to speak freely. And now, she had a big presentation coming up. If she couldn't even answer a simple question about her weekend, how was she supposed to present in front of a room full of professionals? At lunch, she sat alone in the cafeteria, playing with her food. She overheard some of her coworkers chatting effortlessly in English, laughing and joking like it was the easiest thing in the world. She envied them. She wished she could be like that. As she walked back to her desk, she caught a glimpse of herself in the hallway mirror. She looked stressed, tired, and defeated. She had always been a confident person when it came to her work, but this language barrier was crushing her self-esteem. That night, she called her best friend, Elena, who lived in California. "Elena, I don't know what to do," she admitted. "I have a big presentation next month, and I feel completely unprepared. Every time I try to speak English, I freeze." Elena listened patiently. "Mia, you're not alone. So many people struggle with this. But I think the problem isn't your English. It's your fear. You need to stop being so hard on yourself." Mia sighed. "That's easy to say, but how do I actually change?" "You need to start speaking every day," Elena said. "Not just in your head, out loud. You need to get comfortable hearing your own voice in English. You need to practice in real conversations." Mia knew her friend was right, but the idea of speaking every day made her nervous. What if people judged her? What if she made mistakes? Elena laughed. "Mia, do you know how many mistakes native English speakers make every day? No one speaks perfectly all the time. The only way to improve is to start speaking, even if you're not perfect." Mia hesitated, but deep down, she knew she had to do something. She couldn't keep running away from English forever. She had 1 month before her big presentation. She had to find a way to speak fluently. The next morning, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror and took a deep breath. "Good morning," she said out loud. Her voice sounded strange. She felt silly, but she kept going. "Today, I'm going to work. I have a lot of meetings. I will try to speak in English." For the first time, she realized something important. She had never actually spoken to herself in English before. She had always practiced in her head, but saying the words out loud felt different. At work, she made a small but bold decision. When Rachel greeted her, instead of overthinking, she responded naturally. "Hey, Rachel, my weekend was great. I went to a cafe and read a book." Rachel smiled. "That sounds nice. What book did you read?" Mia hesitated, but she pushed through. "It's called Atomic Habits. It's about making small changes for big success." Rachel nodded. "Oh, I've heard of that. I need to read it." Mia couldn't believe it. She had just had a real conversation in English, without panicking. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. She felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to speak fluently. She just had to keep practicing. As she walked back to her desk, she made a promise to herself. She would start speaking English every single day. No more avoiding, no more running away. She had 1 month until her presentation. It was time to take the first step. And with that, Mia's journey to fluency truly began. Mia sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen, but her mind was elsewhere. The small conversation she had with Rachel earlier kept replaying in her head. It was such a simple exchange, just a few sentences, but it had given her a spark of confidence. For the first time, she had spoken without freezing. It wasn't perfect, but Rachel had understood her. The world hadn't ended. No one had laughed at her. She hadn't failed. But then another thought crept in. What if that was just luck? What if next time she stumbled over her words? What if she said something wrong and embarrassed herself? Mia shook her head. No more overthinking. That was part of the problem. She had spent years letting fear control her. It was time to change that. As she left work that evening, she made a decision. She was going to push herself to speak English every day, no matter how uncomfortable it felt. She would stop avoiding conversations. She would stop letting fear win. But where should she start? She pulled out her phone and called Elena. "I want to practice speaking English every day, but I don't know how to start," Mia admitted. Elena chuckled. "You already started today with Rachel. That's a great first step. But if you want to improve quickly, you have to do more. You have to create chances to speak. On purpose." Mia frowned. "Like what?" "Start with small things," Elena suggested. "Talk to yourself out loud. Narrate your day. Order food in English. Ask for help at the store. Force yourself into situations where you have to speak. The more you do it, the easier it will get. Mia nodded. It made sense. She had always waited for the perfect moment to speak, but maybe that was the problem. There was no perfect moment. She just had to start. That night, she stood in front of her mirror again. But this time, she didn't just say a few sentences. She imagined she was telling a friend about her day. Today, I went to work. I had a lot of meetings. I talked to my coworker, Rachel. She asked me about my weekend, and I told her about my book. Her words felt slow and clumsy, but she kept going. At lunch, I sat alone. I heard my coworkers talking. I wanted to join, but I was scared. But I know I need to try more. She took a deep breath and looked at herself. This is working, she thought. It wasn't much, but it was something. The next day, she decided to take another step. Instead of making coffee at home, she went to a coffee shop near her office. She had been there before, but she always pointed at the menu or used as few words as possible to order. Today, she would do it differently. She walked in, took a deep breath, and stepped up to the counter. The barista, a young guy with a friendly smile, greeted her. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Mia's heart pounded. For a second, she wanted to just say coffee and walk away. But she had promised herself she would try. "I'll have a—" She paused, her mind blanking on the word. "I'll have a cappuccino, please." The barista nodded. "Sure. What size?" Mia hesitated. The medium one." "You mean grande?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "Yes, that'll be $4.50. She paid, grabbed her coffee, and walked away. Her hands were shaking, but she had done it. She had spoken in English. It wasn't smooth, and she had paused, but she had gotten through it. And just like that, something clicked. Speaking English wasn't about being perfect. It was about trying. From that moment, Mia looked for every opportunity to speak. At work, when someone asked her a question, she answered without overthinking. At the grocery store, she asked an employee where to find something instead of searching on her own. When she got into an Uber, she greeted the driver and made small talk, even if it was just a few sentences. Every time she spoke, she felt a little more comfortable. The fear was still there, but it was smaller. It no longer controlled her. A week later, she sat down with Rachel at lunch. Normally, she avoided eating with coworkers because she didn't want to struggle with English in front of them. But today, she decided to take a chance. Rachel smiled. "Hey, Mia, how's your day going?" Mia took a deep breath. "It's good. Busy but good." Rachel nodded. "Yeah, same here. I feel like this week is never ending." Mia laughed. "Yes, I feel the same. Too many emails." Rachel laughed too. "Right? I swear my inbox is a disaster." Mia felt something unexpected relaxed. She was having a normal conversation. No panic, no overthinking. Just talking. For the first time, she believed that fluency wasn't some distant, impossible goal. It was something she could reach. But then, something happened that tested her progress. One afternoon, Mr. Carter sent her an email. "Mia, I need you to take a call with a client from London tomorrow. They have some questions about our latest project. Can you handle it?" Mia's stomach dropped. A phone call? In English? She had been practicing, but this was different. This wasn't a simple coffee order or a casual chat. This was work. She stared at the email for a long time. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell Mr. Carter that she wasn't ready. But then, she thought about all the progress she had made. She had spoken to Rachel. She had ordered coffee. She had started talking more at work. If she kept saying no to opportunities, she would never improve. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaking slightly. Then, she typed, "Yes, I can handle it." She hit send before she could change her mind. The next day, at exactly 2 p.m., her phone rang. Mia took a deep breath and answered. "Hello, this is Mia speaking." The voice on the other end greeted her and began asking questions about the project. Mia's heart pounded, but she listened carefully. When it was her turn to respond, she spoke slowly and clearly. She made mistakes. She paused a few times, but she kept going, and when the call ended, she sat back in her chair, stunned. She had done it. She had spoken English in a real business setting. She wasn't perfect. She had stumbled, but she had faced her fear, and that was what mattered. She smiled to herself. She was getting closer to fluency, step by step, but the journey wasn't over yet. Mia sat in her office, staring at her computer screen, but her mind was elsewhere. The phone call with the client had been a huge step for her, but now that it was over, a new fear crept in. Was this enough? She had spoken English under pressure, but her words still felt slow. She still hesitated, still second-guessed herself. She had come so far, yet fluency still felt like a distant dream. She sighed and leaned back in her chair. She needed to do more. She needed more than just quick conversations at coffee shops or short exchanges at work. She needed real, ongoing practice, something that would force her to think in English, to speak without fear, to truly communicate. But how? Later that evening, Mia sat on her couch, scrolling through her phone, searching for ideas. She came across a post in an English learning forum. The best way to improve speaking skills is to find a speaking partner. Talk to someone regularly. Conversations make a difference. A speaking partner? Mia had never thought about that before. She had always practiced alone, repeating words in front of the mirror or speaking under her breath in public. But maybe that was why she still struggled. She never had real, natural conversations. She thought about her options. She had coworkers, but they were always busy. She had Elena, but they mostly spoke in their native language. She needed someone who would push her, someone who would only speak English with her. That's when she remembered Rachel. Rachel had always been friendly, patient, and encouraging. Could she ask her? Would Rachel even want to do this? Mia hesitated for a moment, then grabbed her phone and sent a message. Hey, Rachel, I was wondering, I really want to improve my English speaking skills. Would you be open to practicing with me sometimes? Maybe over lunch or coffee. She pressed send before she could change her mind. A minute passed, then another. Her heart pounded as she waited for a reply. Finally, her phone buzzed. Of course. I'd love to help. Let's do coffee tomorrow. Mia's chest filled with relief. This was happening. She was taking another step. The next afternoon, Mia met Rachel at a small cafe near their office. As they sat down with their drinks, Rachel smiled. So, how do you want to do this? Mia hesitated. I guess I just want to talk, but I need to stop being afraid of mistakes. Rachel nodded. Then let's make a rule. No apologizing for mistakes. Just talk. I'll help if you need it, but don't be scared. Mia took a deep breath. Okay. Rachel stirred her coffee. So, tell me about your weekend. What did you do? Mia thought for a moment. She wanted to say something interesting, but her mind went blank. Just start, she told herself. I went to the bookstore, she said slowly. Rachel smiled. Nice. What book did you get? Mia hesitated. She knew the book's name, but didn't know how to describe it. Instead of stopping, she pushed through. It is about a girl. She moves to a new city. She does not know anyone, but she meets a boy, and she stopped, struggling to find the words. Rachel nodded encouragingly. And they become friends? Yes, Mia said, relieved. They become friends, and, they help each other. That sounds really good, Rachel said. Do you like reading a lot? Yes, Mia said, gaining confidence. I like books because they help me think in English. Rachel grinned. That's a great reason. You're doing really well, by the way. Mia smiled shyly. This was different from speaking at work or ordering coffee. This was a real conversation, and even though she struggled, Rachel was patient. As their coffee cups emptied, Mia realized something. This was the first time she had spoken in English for more than a few minutes without feeling nervous. Over the next few weeks, Mia and Rachel continued their coffee chats. Sometimes they talked about books. Other times they talked about work, weekend plans, or even silly things like what they would do if they won the lottery. Each conversation felt easier than the last. Mia found herself thinking less and speaking more. She stopped worrying about mistakes. She focused on expressing her thoughts, on enjoying the conversation. One day, after a particularly long chat about their favorite movies, Rachel smiled at Mia. "You know," she said, "when we first started, you spoke so carefully, like you were afraid of every word. But now, you're speaking naturally." Mia blinked. "Really? Really?" Rachel said. "You're not just answering questions anymore. You're talking." Mia felt a warmth spread in her chest. She had never noticed it before, but Rachel was right. She was no longer the girl who avoided speaking, who froze when someone spoke to her in English. She was speaking freely, expressing herself without fear. And it wasn't just with Rachel. One afternoon at work, Mia overheard two coworkers, Alex and Jordan, talking about a new movie. Normally, she would have listened quietly, afraid to join in. But today, something felt different. "I watched that movie too," she blurted out before she could stop herself. Alex and Jordan turned to her, surprised. "Really?" Jordan asked. "What did you think?" Mia's heart pounded, but she smiled. "I liked it. The story was very good, and the actors, they did a great job." Alex grinned. "Yeah, the acting was amazing. Which part was your favorite?" Mia hesitated for a second, then pushed forward. "The end." When she paused, searching for words, then finally found them. "When the main character finally gets what he wants." Jordan nodded. "That was a great scene." Mia smiled. She had done it. She had joined a real conversation, not because she was forced to, but because she wanted to. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about how far she had come. Just a few months ago, she had been too scared to even say hello in English. Now, she was chatting with coworkers, sharing her thoughts, and speaking without fear. She wasn't perfect, but she was improving every day. And now, she wanted to push herself even further. She reached for her phone and sent a message to Rachel. "Hey, I want to try something new. Do you know any places where I can meet more English speakers?" Rachel replied almost instantly. "Yes. Let's go to a language exchange event this weekend. It'll be fun." Mia smiled. A few months ago, she would have said no. But now, she was ready. Mia sat in the quiet cafe, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. Across from her, Rachel was scrolling through her phone, looking for upcoming language exchange events. "I found one," Rachel said, tapping on the screen. "This Saturday. It's at a community center, and people from different backgrounds will be there to practice English together." Mia hesitated. The idea of speaking to strangers in English still made her nervous. But she had come so far. She wasn't the same person who used to avoid speaking in English at all. She had conversations now, real conversations. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do it." That Saturday, Mia walked into the community center with Rachel by her side. The room was filled with small groups of people chatting enthusiastically. Some spoke perfect English, while others, like Mia, were still learning. The atmosphere felt warm and welcoming, but her nerves still crept in. A friendly woman greeted them. "Hi, welcome. I'm Jessica, one of the organizers. Is this your first time?" Mia nodded. Jessica smiled. "Don't worry. Everyone here is learning. Just relax and have fun." Mia took a deep breath. This was just another step. She could do this. She and Rachel joined a group where they introduced themselves and took turns sharing stories about their week. At first, Mia kept her answers short, afraid of making mistakes. But as the conversation flowed, she started speaking more freely. By the end of the event, Mia felt lighter, more confident. She had done it. She had spoken in front of strangers, and nothing bad had happened. That night, as she lay in bed, Mia thought about how much she had changed. She no longer feared speaking like she once did. She was comfortable in conversations. But there was one final challenge she hadn't faced yet: speaking in front of a group at work. It had been her biggest fear since she started her job. She had always avoided it, letting others take the lead. But deep down, she knew she couldn't avoid it forever. Then, as if the universe had heard her thoughts, an email arrived the next morning. Subject: Team meeting on Friday, presentation assignments. Mia's stomach twisted as she opened the email. Mia, we'd like you to present the project updates this time. It will be a short presentation, just a summary of what we've accomplished so far. Let me know if you have any questions. Her heart pounded. A presentation? In English? She stared at the screen, debating whether to reply with an excuse. But then she thought about everything she had been working toward. She had come this far. Was she really going to back out now? No, not this time. She took a deep breath and typed back. Okay, I'll do it. The days leading up to the meeting were filled with anxiety. Mia practiced in front of the mirror, wrote down key points, and even rehearsed with Rachel. You got this, Rachel encouraged her. You just need to focus on speaking slowly and clearly. And don't overthink it. Mia nodded, trying to convince herself. But when Friday morning arrived, her confidence wavered. The meeting room was filled with her co-workers, all chatting as they waited for the presentation to begin. Mia held her notes tightly, her palms sweaty. Her manager smiled at her. Whenever you're ready, Mia. She stood up slowly, her legs feeling weak. The room fell silent, and all eyes were on her. Her throat felt dry, and for a brief moment she panicked. What if she forgot her words? What if she messed up? She glanced at Rachel, who gave her an encouraging nod. Then she took a deep breath, and she started speaking. At first, her voice was shaky, but she kept going. She focused on speaking slowly, clearly. She reminded herself that she knew this topic. She had worked on this project for months. As she continued, her nerves started to fade. She found her rhythm. The words came naturally. She wasn't just reading her notes, she was talking. When she finally finished, she braced herself for feedback. The room was quiet for a second. Then, her manager smiled. Great job, Mia. That was clear and well explained. A wave of relief washed over her. As the meeting continued, Mia sat back in her chair, realizing something incredible. She had done it. She had spoken in front of her coworkers. And she had survived. Not just survived, she had succeeded. For the first time, Mia truly believed it. She was fluent. She had conquered her fear. And now, there was nothing she couldn't do. Mia walked out of the meeting room, her heart still racing. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from excitement, from relief, from victory. She had done it. She had stood in front of her coworkers, spoken in English, and completed her presentation without freezing, without panicking, without feeling like she wasn't good enough. A few months ago, this would have been impossible. She had always believed that fluency in English was something distant, something only other people could achieve. She had thought it required some special talent, some secret ability that she simply didn't have. But she had been wrong. Fluency wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about knowing every word or never making mistakes. It was about confidence, about using the English she did know without fear. And for the first time, she truly felt fluent. As Mia sat at her desk, processing everything that had just happened, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. Rachel, how did it go? I've been waiting to hear. Mia smiled, typing back quickly. Mia, I did it. I actually did it. A moment later, Rachel's response came. Rachel, I knew you would. I'm so proud of you. See? I told you, you're ready. Mia felt a warmth in her chest. It wasn't just about English anymore. It was about everything she had overcome. The fear, the self-doubt, the moments when she had wanted to give up. She had pushed through all of it, and now she could see just how far she had come. She leaned back in her chair, replaying the events in her mind. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been struggles, frustration, days when she had felt like she wasn't making any progress. But step by step, she had improved. She thought back to where it had all started. The frustration of not being able to speak. The fear of saying something wrong. The loneliness of feeling stuck, while others around her seemed to speak so easily. But now she could speak in meetings. She could have conversations without overthinking. She could express her thoughts freely without hesitation. And it wasn't just about English. It was about confidence. She had learned that fluency wasn't about knowing every word. It was about using what she did know without fear. It was about speaking up, even when she wasn't sure she was saying everything perfectly. It was about believing in herself. That evening, as Mia walked home, she took a deep breath, feeling lighter than she had in a long time. The city was alive with the sounds of people talking, laughing, moving through their daily lives. She passed by a small cafe and saw a group of people sitting together, talking in English. Some were speaking fluently, while others stumbled over words, laughing as they corrected themselves. It reminded her of where she had been just a few months ago. And then she had an idea. She pulled out her phone and sent Rachel a message. Mia, I think I want to help others learn English. Maybe I can start a conversation group, like the one you brought me to. Rachel's reply came almost instantly. Rachel, that's amazing. You'd be great at it. Let's do it together. Mia smiled. She had spent so much time thinking she wasn't good enough, that she wasn't fluent enough. But now, she realized something important. Fluency wasn't a final destination. It was a journey, and she had made it. Mia's journey wasn't unique. There are millions of people learning English right now, feeling the same fear, the same frustration, the same doubts that she once had. Maybe you have felt them too. Maybe you've been afraid to speak. Maybe you've convinced yourself that fluency is impossible, that you'll never be good enough, that you'll always be stuck. But Mia's story proves one thing. Fluency is possible. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you make. What matters is that you keep going, that you take small steps every single day, that you use the English you already know, even if it's not perfect. Mia didn't become fluent overnight. She struggled. She made mistakes. She felt embarrassed at times. But she didn't stop. She surrounded herself with English. She practiced even when it felt awkward. She pushed through her fear and spoke, even when she didn't feel ready. And now she was confident. You can do the same. Fluency isn't about speaking without mistakes. It's about speaking without fear. So start today. Speak. Practice. Keep going. Because fluency in 2025, it's possible for you too. Mia's journey proves that fluency is not a dream. It is a reality waiting for anyone willing to take the steps. She started with fear, doubt, and frustration, believing that speaking English was impossible for her. But she didn't let those feelings stop her. She kept going. She practiced, she made mistakes, she felt embarrassed at times, but she didn't quit. And because of that, she transformed from someone who was afraid to speak into someone who could confidently express herself in meetings, conversations, and everyday life. Her story is not unique. If you have ever felt like English fluency is too far away, if you have ever been afraid to speak, if you have ever thought, I will never be good enough, then know this. Mia once felt the same way. But she proved to herself that fluency was possible. And so can you. The truth is, learning English is not about being perfect. It's about progress. It's about showing up every day, speaking even when it feels uncomfortable, learning from mistakes, and pushing forward despite the fear. It's about believing in yourself. Maybe today, you struggle to form sentences. Maybe speaking makes you nervous. Maybe you avoid conversations because you are afraid of making mistakes. But that does not mean you will always feel this way. If you keep going, if you practice, if you take small steps every day, you will get better. One day, just like Mia, you will look back and realize how far you have come. Fluency is not about knowing every word. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about confidence. It's about using the English you do know and growing from there. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start now. Speak now. Take the first step today. Because fluency in 2025, it's not just possible, it's waiting for you.